on Farms, where several of us ladies from the Rotary Club of Dallas visited the Market Cafe there this weekend for a late lunch. This farm is absolutely beautiful, producing over 25,000 pounds of fresh produce last year. They grow everything from lettuce to Swiss chard, carrots, beets, garlic, turnips, onions, on and on and on, including peaches and plums, fruit trees, and so much more. They sell their fresh produce mostly at the Dallas Farmers Market, but they also have a really nice cafe and a store on site where they sell delicious foods that are ready to enjoy right there at a little cafe table on site. I really enjoyed specifically the green mater sandwich, fried green tomatoes. Good stuff. So you got the last one. I did. It was so good. And a tour of the grounds is an absolute must, even if only to meet sweet Lucy, who's the mama goat. Here's Shelby and Sarana having some company with the goats. This farm has become a beacon of hope in an otherwise desolate food desert area of Dallas. Now the residents can come into Bonton Farms and get a hand-picked fresh produce upon request. The farm's mission is to restore lives, create jobs, and ignite hope. They've expanded to another farm of over 40 acres and just a few minutes down the road from the original farm and cafe, and they have plans to build a coffee shop at the original location at some time in the near future. With our focus today on the food desert and many other challenges inherent in the South Dallas area, Bonton Farms inspires me today, and I hope it does you too. Now, please take this moment to silence your cell phones, and while your phone's in your hand, you know what to do. Check in on Facebook. Today, our invocation will be given by Kearney Leday, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance with Charlie Meyer, and the introduction of our guests by Reed Rogers. So, Kearney, come on up.
All right, let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, we thank you that you promise to be with us always. Thank you that your presence is with us now. Today, we give you our hearts, our minds, our lives. Come speak your word of life into our beings. We pray that you would deepen our comprehension, broaden our thinking, and transform our understanding. For you are our wise counselor, our perfect teacher, and our faithful friend. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Well, we are so blessed to be in the greatest city, in the greatest state, in the greatest country in the world. So please join me in our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We have a number of guests with us. You can be seated if you'd like. We have a number of guests with us this afternoon. Beginning, I'd like to introduce each of them. And guests, when I call your name, if you would stand and remain standing until I've introduced all of you. And Rotarians, as always, please hold your applause until I've introduced all our guests. Beginning with John Smotherman, who is a guest of Jim Struble. Lee Madrid, guest of John Forrest. Pat Wilson, also a guest of John Forrest, and Doug McAllister, another guest of John Forrest. And all three of them are with our new corporate member, PSGI. And then finally, Jacob Coleman, guest of John Mills. Welcome to Rotary.
Thank you, Reed. And welcome to each of our guests and to our new members, too. We appreciate you guys very much. I also wanted to give a little bit of insight to a few other guests who are with us today that weren't mentioned. We have Rick Bariff, who's working, and please stand up and be recognized, And he's working with the Restorative Farms to create an informative, educational, and motivating visual narrative and an impactful brand. And he's been doing a documentary on the farms. So we're really looking forward to seeing that when it comes out. Also, Doric Earl, who's with us today, he and his solution broker firm, Forward Planning LLC, focuses on urban planning as it pertains specifically to unlocking the potential of underserved communities and has been involved in the Restorative Farms effort as well. So welcome to each of you guys. We're glad to have you as well. And of course, we also want to say hello and acknowledge those of you who are joining us live on Facebook. Please let us know you're there. Like us, click, comment, share, tag. Tag Bonton Farms, tag Restorative Farms, and tag a friend who you know would enjoy this presentation today. Spring break babies. We would like to wish a very happy belated birthday to Shelby Abeda, who celebrated on Monday, and Howard Templin, our past president, just celebrated yesterday. Happy birthday to you both. And today is actually my birthday, and this is the biggest... Y'all are cute. Thank you, guys. Y'all have been such a present to me. It was quite a surprise to walk in and see all the party favors on the tables, and the flowers is beautiful. Thanks, you guys. I can't think of a better way to celebrate. Thank you. And also, tomorrow, Gary Griffith and Wanda Jones are celebrating, and John Mills celebrates on Friday. So we want to wish each of you a happy birthday. Keep on celebrating. I am definitely celebrating. Thanks, you guys. Oh, and I do have 3 checks for our foundation, as it is our custom to give a little something on your birthday. So thanks to you who contributed. And this week, Anthony Interante is our featured Backpage professional. While he's not able to be here with us today, he wanted me to let you know that every day is actually a great day to be a Rotarian since he joined our club in 2010. He is an attorney, and his downtown law firm of Kessler and Collins focuses their practice on commercial real estate, litigation, employment law, banking, restructuring, estate planning, and corporate and commercial law matters. His firm has extensive experience supporting large, medium, and small institutions in complex business matters and disputes. Anthony says he and his law partners are likable lawyers who thrive and take pride in their many long-term client relationships, which they've cultivated over the years via unparalleled client service. And if you know Anthony, which many of you do, you know he is in fact very likable. He and his firm are committed to responding to clients with prompt, cost-effective, and highly personalized solutions. Anthony is a native Dallasite and is very excited to be a part of this great city, specifically the downtown community. He welcomes the opportunity to visit with any of you about your legal needs. And he also said, please contact him if you're interested in continuing to grow this great city together. So Anthony, if you're watching, thank you for your support of our Backpage. Without you, we couldn't print our daily rotograms that we do. So you all will see the beautiful rotograms on your table, and Anthony's business card is right there in the middle. Thank you very much. And now, it is with great pleasure that I introduce 5 incredible human beings who are with us today, and they are tirelessly working towards solving some of South Dallas's, specifically, most challenging issues around nutritious food scarcity, the lack of economic opportunities, amplified health and disease statistics, and other constraints that have inherently kept this area of our communities struggling for decades. You can find more complete bios in the rotograms that are there on your tables, but I do want to hit some of the highlights, beginning with my friend Brad Boa, who's going to kick off our presentation here in a minute. Brad has been a serial entrepreneur, founding several companies over the last 30 years, allowing him the opportunity to purchase a small East Texas ranch as a retirement project, which led to his interest in agriculture and its impact on local economies and lives, both in rural Texas as well as South Dallas. Brad is a co-founder of Restorative Farms, which is a professional urban farm system located in the heart of South Dallas's Fair Park, a known urban food desert. Restorative Farms creates a systemic farming mechanism that will both produce locally grown fresh food and provide a much needed local and beneficial restorative justice jobs program. Brad is also on the board of Miles of Freedom alongside Richard Miles, whom we had the pleasure of hearing from just a few short weeks ago. So to refresh your memories, Miles of Freedom is a Dallas-based nonprofit dedicated to helping people transition after life in prison. Next, we will have Dr. Owen Lynch presenting. He is an associate professor and Altschuler Distinguished Teaching Professor in the Meadows School of the Arts at SMU. Your bio's gonna tongue trip me, I'm just saying. He is the director of the Corporate Communication and Public Affairs Organizational Communication Track. He is also a senior research fellow at the Hunt Institute of Engineering and Humanity at the Lyle School of Engineering of SMU. As Director of Community Research, he leads the Asset-Based Community Development Initiative, utilizing existing local assets and communities to address current problems. He is active in the city of Dallas with regards to healthy, fresh food access and food justice issues. He has served and is a member of the Mayor's Poverty Task Force, is also a co-founder of Restorative Farms, and currently serves as the executive director for Get Healthy Dallas, which is a nonprofit organization he helped to form, which is dedicated to addressing the lack of healthy food options, adequate education, and economic development opportunities in South Dallas and Fair Park. Next, we will have Tyrone Day, the horticulturist and director of the seedling farm at the MLK Freedom Garden. Tyrone was raised in the South Dallas area and is a horticulture graduate of the Trinity Valley Community College in Atkins, Texas. A hardworking horticulturist for the past 20 years, Tyrone joined the Restorative Farms mission in 2017 when he took on his current role at the seedling farm. In the first year of production under his leadership, the seedling greenhouse produced over 12,000 vegetable plants from seeds, 85% of which were donated to local and residential gardens. So far this year, he and his team have produced over 8,000 vegetable plants with a 2019 production goal of 40,000 seedlings, and they are well on their way to achieving this goal. The intended purpose of the seedling farm in the South Dallas community and abroad is to train residents in the area how to eat healthy and live healthy lives while attacking the food desert, the unemployment desert, diabetes and obesity, along with creating sustainable gardens with a horticulture educational component in the DFW area. Next, we have Drew Demler, who is the director of horticulture for the State Fair of Texas, where he's also the co-founder and head grower of the Big Tex Urban Farms. Prior to joining the State Fair, he was one of the head horticulturists at the Dallas Arboretum. He brings over 24 years of experience in the green industry to the mission of Big Tex Urban Farms, a project started by the State Fair of Texas in 2016, designed to have a positive impact on the South Dallas food desert and beyond through produce donation and education. His experience and industry credentials, along with the support of Big Tex Urban Farms, have been absolutely instrumental in helping Restorative Farms successfully reach important South Dallas agri-system milestones. And finally, Bob Curry has been working with the City of Dallas for 15 years towards establishing its first urban agriculture program. He is a lifelong gardener and a founding member of 3 community gardens here in Dallas. Bob received a bachelor's degree in business from the University of Missouri and then a master's degree from the University of Kansas. Bob has been recognized by the National Center for Healthy Housing, the American Public Health Association, and the EPA for his work improving housing conditions in order to reduce incidence of childhood asthma in Dallas. Fascinating. As a resident of Dallas, Bob will continue his efforts to increase food supplies in order to reduce and eventually eliminate food insecurity within the Dallas population. What a phenomenal group of speakers we have here today. Now, are you all ready to hear from them and what they're doing for South Dallas? Great, I sure am. Without further ado, please welcome Brad Boa. Here's the advancer, and you just, when he gets it up here, you just go to the right arrow and it'll advance it.
Dana, thank you for having us here and building up the expectations that may be very hard. I know you had instructions about silencing your phones. If you could silence these also, please, just put those away. But I'm glad that Richard was here a few weeks ago for Miles of Freedom, and we were here last year, Tyrone and I, when Darren Babcock spoke about Bontown Farms, because they tell you more about what's going on in South Dallas, and you'll know more about that as we get into this. But I thought it might be instructive to and kind of give you the reasons why I'm here and how I got here, because that informs what we're doing. I tried to retire like 5 years ago, and as Dana pointed out, I bought a ranch in East Texas that I thought could be a retirement project. And as I got there and went to this little small town of Athens, which is potentially a quintessential small Texas town, I realized that half the town was empty. And upon further research, I realized that what drove the economy in small rural towns was agriculture, which has been basically carted away to a factory somewhere or other. So I thought, in my naive way, and one strength I have is being too dumb to know what I can't do, I thought maybe I could help them do something with that. So I started meeting farmers and ranchers that were growing things sustainably, responsibly. Interestingly, some of these people were very left-wing, some of them were very right-wing, but what they had in common was a love of what they were doing, a love for their community, a love for the land, and they were good people. And that led me to explore what would be their biggest market, which would be Dallas. And at that time, I was reintroduced to the term food desert and started realizing what a situation there was here in Dallas. I think at that point, Dallas was arguably maybe the #1 city for over 1 million for childhood poverty, obesity in South Dallas, and so on and so forth. Having also been involved in some nonprofits and having some bit of a weariness from that and a lack of feeling successful, I had a little crisis of faith. And someone said, you need to meet this young man. Maybe you can help him. And that was Richard Miles, who, if you remember a few weeks ago, is an amazing individual. And so I decided to be on the board of Miles of Freedom. Richard informed me a lot about what was going on in South Dallas and some of the real issues around food deserts, which, as you probably know, are not really just food deserts, they're resource deserts. But let me see how to get this. Okay, so my interest in agriculture I shared with Richard, and he came to me and said, you know, behind MLK there's this garden, well, it used to be a garden, and we went to see it was just some empty beds on asphalt. And he said, used to be a garden here. He said, maybe we can actually make a new garden here today. So we reached out to some individuals we knew, and one of them, a philanthropist from Tulsa, said, I love that idea, I'll fund this. And so he funded the plants, the soil, he came down, and we created the MLK Freedom Garden. And this is the day we did it. And you can see all the happy faces, all the kids, it was amazing. We all probably know the benefits of an urban garden or farm. It was instructive for the kids, it brought community together, people of different cultures and different communities came together. It was really wonderful. But if you look to the right, you see what turned out to be some liabilities. Well, many of the people from North Dallas or other communities might think it's relaxing to spend time watering a garden. For people struggling to make a living and make ends meet, it's a job. And so you see Kenneth watering it, and he had to be paid to water on a regular basis. Rather than being a real benefit, it became sort of an albatross around the neck of Miles of Freedom because of the cost of keeping it up. And so eventually, this is what happened to it, because it wasn't delivering real value for it. So that leads us to the next iteration of that space, and I'm going to hand the clicker over to my colleague, Owen Lynch.
Thank you. So this is when I first met Brad and Tyrone and Richard, and the garden obviously was the microphone. Oh, sorry. So this is when I first met Brad and Richard and Brad at this space at the MLK Center, and the garden was obviously dead. National research shows that 90% of all gardens put in fail within the first year for many of the problems that Brad just mentioned, that they're actually a lot more support. So the second idea that we had was a new beginning, and that was to actually put in a seedling farm that would be an input system to actually grow all of the gardens in the community so they could grow better and get a local expert, and it was really meeting Tyrone that enabled this to happen. But the idea is seedlings die, They're very fragile. You have to know what to grow. You got to know when to grow them. You got to know what type of variety to put into the ground. And so can we have a farm that can literally coordinate, organize, and then produce for an entire system so a system can grow better? So we're taking a systemic approach, and this is the beginning. You can see the difference in these gardens now, and if you went there yesterday, you go there today, you'll see a very productive, beautiful space that's still being utilized by the whole entire community and system. So we started with this model. This is too small, but this is the shows the origin. We brought people together, and the team has grown and grown of different experts in the area of agriculture, agriculture economics, systems theory, and growers. And really what we're looking at is an industrial food system and the unintended consequences of industrial food system, which is incredibly efficient and effective at delivering the food that we're eating today, but also it has unintended consequences. And one of those unintended consequences is urban food deserts all around the country, but Dallas is the largest in the country, as Brad just mentioned. So we formed Restorative Farms, which is, its mission is to grow a better Dallas and to grow a more vibrant food system versus just put a farm in or put a garden in that provides for a few people, put a structure in so that other people and ourselves can grow more. We're not going to solve the problem of feeding Dallas with a couple community gardens. We need an agriculture economic structure that will support all the gardens so they can start working together to get some real production numbers. So that's basically what our goal was, to create a viable and sustainable food system that could support itself. So we started with the seedling farm, recognizing that a systematic problem requires systematic solutions. And from the seedling farm, we supply local growers. We actually also manage local growers' farms and gardens. And we use that as a training grounds for future urban farmers. And Tyrone will talk a little bit about that program today. And then they supply food banks, churches, and several of the vendors in the community. So if I think about local farming, the question you have to ask yourself is, why do I want local farming? Why should we have local farming within a city district? There's lots of different reasons for that question, a lot of different answers. And so what I'd like you to think about today is, which one of these is the one that you think is the most important, or you say, you know, that's the one that I really want to put my hat on. The first is simply food security. Dallas is one of the least food secure cities in the country. In fact, Rockefeller, when they won the Rockefeller Resiliency Grant, pointed that out, that we get most of our food from other countries, from Mexico primarily. Our food is delivered halfway across the country. We see food all the time. We've eaten some lovely food today. That food was just in time delivered. And the system is constantly delivering us food, and if there's a disruption to that system, or there's a trade war, obviously Dallas is going to go hungry. And there's ranging statistics on how long we can last, but we survive on the distribution system that feeds us every single day without realizing how vulnerable that makes us to a disruption. So food security might be your reason why we need to promote local farms, not cute gardens, local farm systems. Right? The other one is food insecurity. There's already half of our city land mass that is already food insecure, that doesn't have access to fresh, healthy food and vegetables, and that's South Dallas and some of West Dallas. And how do we get communities to have access to fresh, healthy food? As Brad mentioned, of cities over of 1 million people, we have the largest food desert and the most children living in poverty. Green food. If you want your food to have less carbon footprint, if you don't want your food to travel halfway across the globe, if you look on your plate today in front of you, you probably have 10 countries and thousands of miles represented right there in front of you. Right? Think about the carbon footprint that it has. Think about the packaging, the repackaging, the cooling, the distribution, the aggregation, and all those things that go into bringing that plate to you. So just to reduce the carbon footprint of your plate is another reason for local farms. And the last is fresh food. If you want your food to last 30 days for the trip it takes to make it to your plate, they have to either grow it in chemicals or they have to put chemicals on it to make it last longer. You may want fresher food without those chemicals, without those preservatives, without those things affecting your food. You also may say, I also want to see food growing, and lots of studies show that people, when they live near places that grow, it improves the community well-being. It also makes people more likely to try healthy, fresh foods. So it might just be one of those reasons. So look at those four. Is it food security? Is it because many people are already experiencing food insecurity? Is it that you want green food? Or is it that you want fresh food? At the end of the day, the answer is a local healthy farm system, right? Not just a farm, you need a farm system. And what does that look like? That looks like this. You need pre-production inputs that will plan them and help manage a large-scale system, and that takes a lot of infrastructure and work, and that's what Restorative Farms is, gathering the expertise and those resources together so that we can start doing that. That's our mission. You also then obviously need people like Drew and Tyrone who are the producers. We need harvesting, we need aggregation, we need processing. We need distribution, then transportation, and then it moves all the way from up until ultimately what Dallas doesn't have is a food waste recovery system to turn our waste food into healthy soil to regrow more food, which would be a very easy step to put in. But we need all of these things. We need all these things to work well together so that we can reduce the cost points of each one of those, because each one of them represents a huge transaction cost on any individual farmer who wants to come into the system without this robust system. Obviously, Dallas is an unresilient city. If we look at these maps here, we see where the food deserts are in South Dallas and in West Dallas. We can see most of our land mass is actually quantified as a food desert, which means they do not have access to fresh, healthy food within 1 square mile of where they live. We also look at how that correlates with children under poverty, and we see how these two things overlap with each other. If you're interested in details, I have 1,000 of them. I'm going to go kind of quickly over these. I can bore you later, but I can also send you lots of charts. That's what I do. But so when we have an unresilient city, what it really comes down to is we have isolated communities that are sectioned off. We have concentrated poverty. That means we don't get a good tax base from those communities as the property value is low. We also have, and this is the most important one, unequal access to vital resources, jobs, health, food. People have to leave their community to go get what they need, right? And so all the money also leaves that community. So how do we expect these things to grow locally? And then we also have an extreme risk to disruptive forces such as extreme weather. And these communities are particularly at risk in the future. So isolated poverty and concentrated poverty, the Dallas Fed 20 years ago talked about these were the two killers, and this is what makes systemic problems so difficult to overcome. And Dallas, unfortunately, has both of those two things. As Charles said earlier, it's a great city. We want to grow it to be great, right? And that means all of the city. So we believe, though, you cannot define a community by what it doesn't have. If I say, hey, come invest in a desert, right? Who wants to go there, right? We have to stop talking about food deserts just as food deserts or resource deserts. They are, right? But we also have to look at the assets that are currently available and how can we refocus those assets to make sure that we can have a vibrant food system. Our concern, Restorative Farms, something that really drives all of us, is a food system is coming to Dallas. The market is too great, and I'll talk a little bit about some of those economic numbers in a second. We don't want it to leapfrog over South Dallas or where the food's really needed. And it's more money. It's more difficult to put a food system in a food desert, right? To really get a growth, because it's easier to put in place. We already have the market already there that can buy the food, right? But this is where it's most needed, and if you look out your window, this is where all the land is available to grow on, right? So we have workers, land, access, and location. So the problem is the issue of scale, right? That ultimately, for any consumer to trust my product, right, I need to be able to deliver that product with quality and scale enough so that they're willing to come to me as a supplier. More scale means more value to buyers, means a better market. But I have to have also the market demand to build that large-scale system. So right now, we have this chicken and egg, and we have neither, right? And so what Restorative Farms is trying to do is we're trying to bring experts together who have various expertise to try to bridge those differences, to try to create the demand and the market simultaneously until the system can take care of itself. And at that point, we'll step away and never to be seen again, right? But the goal is to get this virtuous circle going. But if we don't have the scale, we can't get the demand. If we don't have the demand, we can't build the scale, and the circle keeps on going, and the story never ends. So if I'm a farmer, right, and we mentioned at Bonton Farms or other small farmers, and I don't have an agri-system to plug into, I've got to resort to other things to make my farm viable, to bring revenue in the door. And it's not just about production. It's also about agritourism, agri-education, donations, brand values. We know a local farm that 1/3 of all of its revenue in is T-shirt sales, right? Not what it actually produces in the field. In fact, it loses money on everything it produces in the field. It makes its money in selling the T-shirts, right? Now, don't blame that farmer, because it is too difficult for them to build an infrastructure around themselves to support themselves to be productive farmers. They've got to find other avenues to create revenue. The problem, as we all know, when you build a business, right, if your focus is over here, right, then that ends up killing the very thing that you need to grow, which is a production system to create an agri-system. But you can't build everything, so you build what you can. And so the irony is that the projects actually can stop an emerging farm system from happening. And so we need to come in alongside whatever system's growing and help them be better at their job so we can reduce their transaction costs so they can produce more and go back to what they really want to do, which is feed communities. So when we look at local food economies, how much is this, right? I'm going to go quickly through this, but in 2014, Louisville did a study, for example. Now, Louisville is about 1/5 the size of our GDP area, and Louisville found that they consume about $2 billion worth of food a year, right? That's 300 million of that is determined local, right? And so, but they found that people wanted to buy more, but they just couldn't get it, including chefs, restaurants, institutions, and individuals. So they found there was an $800 million demand for local food. That's a $500 million gap, right? Now, I don't know what exactly it is in Dallas, but if Louisville had a $500 million gap, right, Dallas has a larger one, right? The market's big enough to start reinvesting and thinking about these things. But what does it need? It needs supply chain trust. In other words, the market needs to trust that we can deliver the product consistency and quality that it needs. And it needs us to start with large-scale institutions so that we can get the production set level working with schools. I'm working with SMU to become an end user. A hospital system, we're talking to hospital systems right now about them becoming end users so that we can get the system going. It needs capital. It needs capital funds that will invest in agri-system businesses and to encourage agri-system growth and connecting and working together to leverage assets. And then it needs tax incentive from cities and farming policies that will help an agri-system emerge and grow. So these three things are absolutely, obviously necessary. What we're talking about doing is this type of gardening in Hatcher, for example, and this is highly productive. It's labor intensive. It's quick rotation of crops. It's putting seedlings in already fully grown, getting them to market as quickly as possible, and creating beautiful, bountiful places. So you get a lot of food out of these systems, and this is the type of farm that we're putting in next. So where are we right now? We have a seedling farm. We have the R&D, and Drew will talk a little bit about what they're doing at Big Text, and we have partners at AgriLife, and we have other partners who know what we can grow and all the best growing methods, be they ancient or be they totally modern like hydroponics. We have the expertise of all the different mechanisms in the food systems. We have land in South Dallas, and what we're working right now is Hatcher, which I'll get to in a second. So the next stage we really need is we need a platform farm. It'll be transformational for the entire system, which will be a production-focused farm that does nothing but produce vast amount of vegetables in a very small space that we can train people on. And when I say we, Tyrone, can train people on, right, so that they can become urban farmers, and then we can scale that in a franchise model and build another farm, and then build another farm, and then build another farm. And when we get about 5 or 6, we'll start to be able to be a reliable producer. But it's going to take that level of scale, focus, and determination. And then we can start training farmers. Then we can have franchise farms. Then we can get to an aggregation distribution hub in the Dallas, South Dallas area, which is what we really need. The first farm we're putting in is Hatcher Station, and this is really because of Doric. If you like, Doric is working with Fraser Revitalization next to the Parkin Clinic. They got the Parkin Clinic put in there. They're also working on a new clinic coming in. And there was land next to the DART station, so it's a high transportation hub next to a health clinic. And every DART station in South Dallas has a couple acres next to them. This is the first one we're putting in, and the goal is to go down the line or find suitable lots and convert them into farms using this franchise model. But it's clearly the location, and working on the current transportation and patterns of transport that people use. This is a model of the farm that we're currently putting in. We've at the stage where we're raising capital, and we've sectioned these off, but we have a community farm which teaches local community members to grow better using the seedling farm. And then if they do well for a year and they've gone through the training process, we'll put a garden in their backyard, and they can utilize the seedling farm to make sure their family's productive and they can feed their family. But also to encourage community connection to the farm. And then we also have row growing, hoop house growing. We will put a hydroponic system and water catchment system so we can train people on these various platforms. But this is a training farm to create more training farms, to create higher production levels than we've seen in the Dallas area. We have seen it in Drew's farm. Drew's farm, by itself, in 1 year will produce more than all the other farms that we have in the community times 10, because it's a professional run farm. You just can't, there's no competition. So the positive neighborhood effects of a highly efficient small-scale agricultural system in the center, obviously local jobs. We're also doing job certification and vocational training future urban farmers. And we have a system that we're doing to track that process. We're a source of healthy food, and we will be a source of greater healthy food once we get Hatcher up. Community engagement and systems. This one here, Agri-Food Businesses Incubator, and Doric's working on this, which is basically an incubator that will utilize the food to create new businesses that utilize food as a premise, whether it be a food truck or whether it be other healthy services, and then energy efficient and resilient communities. So as we know, how do we eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Now the two gentlemen who are about to speak now, if you talk about eating an elephant, they're the ones who really do the eating, Right, I do the talking, Brad does the talking. These are the guys who are really taking and taking off a huge chunk, because they're the producers, and so they're the ones really who are doing the yeoman's work. But with them in place, as we take this systematically and take it chunk by chunk by chunk, I think we can eat this elephant, and I think we can turn a lot of what you see out there from dormant vacant lots into vibrant plots. So thank you for your time.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Tyrone?
Have you tried planting any of the avocado trees that are adapted for this area on your plate?
That we'll get that. Drew is the guy. Don't ask me about farm. I mean, I do economic systems. I don't do farming. But Drew probably can talk to you about that. But Jeff Raskin, who's also a member of our group from Texas A&M AgriLife, he's an expert in vineyards, and he's also an expert in tree planting. So I'm sure he will could tell us. But I don't. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. But this guy, he probably knows.
Is this thing show something?
That's it. You don't worry about it.
Good evening. Of course, y'all know my name, Tyrone Day. Restore the Farms. Actually, it's been a pleasure to be able to work among Restore the Farms, coming from South Dallas. As Diana said at first, I was born and raised in Dallas, but I was raised as a youth in South Dallas. Actually, this thing here kind of, it's basically it's my life story. Coming from South Dallas, food desert, however, one of the things that I do acknowledge about the mission that we do have is that I was a part of that food desert for a long time. And in that particular neighborhood that we in, I grew up there as a tot. And I remember having to ride my bicycle from South Dallas, from the State Fair of Texas, down to the farmer's market to get fresh vegetables from my mom. Because every neighborhood store and corner store sold every bag of chips or every pickle or every type of thing that there was besides fresh vegetables. And we wanted fresh vegetables, and there was a day in my family where we had fresh vegetables 3 days a week, especially on Sundays. And I would have to travel to go and get those vegetables because I was the oldest child. And I would go to the market and get those vegetables. But there at the MLK Center, there was some said earlier, Dana said, and that was about hope. I never imagined that, gardening, I've seen a lot of gardens in Dallas, in South Dallas. And I grew up with my grandmother leaving South Dallas in the summertime, going to a little town called Crandall, Texas, right outside of Dallas. And she farmed a lot. But there were so many gardens in Dallas when I was growing up. And in the last 4 years, we've seen so many dormant gardens in South Dallas, and less of an educational component that goes along with what we have there as far as dormant gardens. So the system that's put in at MLK, as you can see, the production that we do have there, this place production is like wow. And we do it as an educational component, a training component, and with sincerity, I reach out to every walking human being it is, every living being. There every day you have James Madison High School children, you have senior citizens, you have, how would you say, the lofters that come through, even the homeless people. We have boxes out front, and they eat, they pick and pull. And if they don't know how to do that, we train them how to do that. And they're allowed to come in the greenhouse if they want to plant. If you stay in an apartment complex, most of them do, they plant in pots. They plant lettuce, they plant spinach, they plant something that they can take home and put on the porch and pick off of and eat something fresh every day. It's amazing because I had a kid one time didn't know that a carrot was grown. They never knew how a carrot come about. And you have that. But now, with this being done here as an education component, they know where spinach come from, they know where carrots come from. They know how to grow it. They know how to plant the seed and watch it germinate. They've seen it done themselves. But the thing here is that we produce a lot of plants, and it's been a blessing to me to be able to work with Drew at Big Tex Farm, Bonton Farms, Cornerstone Baptist Church, and a lot of more people. I travel through Dallas a lot, just overseeing gardens and looking at gardens. Restore the Farms is something that is on the rise, and it's a lot of work put off into it, and it's frustrating because not everybody understands gardening. And not everybody want to put the work in to get the benefits from a garden. But the educational component that goes with that, it's like it overwhelms people. You know, when they learn, because it's a lot of people in South Dallas. There's a trust issue and there's a hope issue. And when you reach out to people, they're not always fond of something that they don't know something about. There's always illiteracy when it comes to certain things. But when they grab onto this little 16 by 20 greenhouse here that's at MLK, they get all the hope. They get to see anything that they never saw before. This place here sit dormant for a long time. And when I made it to Dallas, I was just like, I was a lawn man. I mean, I didn't think that they was interested in gardening in Dallas. I was working for Miles of Freedom on the lawn crew, managing the lawn crew. But it's a lot that was did here in the last year. It's so much that was did here in the last year. And it's been publicized about the drastic move that's going on here. People come in every day and they want their own gardens. We provide seedlings for them. The thing was in Dallas here is that nobody could get a seed to germinate. 80% of Dallas people who have gardens, citizens, they couldn't get a seed to germinate. So this kickstarts them. This is a kickstart for them. I mean, we plant 8, 10, 15, 20,000 plants a year. This year my goal is to plant 40,000 plus. But to get those seeds to germinate, it's work. But it allows us to know that when those plants are passed off to this neighbor, to this community, to this vendor, to however, that the sustainability is like 90%, that it'll sustain and to grow. And that family or that community, that garden will have a sustainable garden where they can be able to eat and be able to survive and be able to eat healthy. Actually, during the day of the course, my day starts out about 4:30 in the morning. Actually, when I leave there, I hit this place here, MLK Freedom Garden, and I'm there 5 days a week, sometimes 6. At the most, I spend there about 7, 8 hours a day. And that's a tough 6, 7 hours a day because you got people coming in and out of that place all day. Anywhere from a tot to a senior. And actually, they get what they actually come for. We don't turn nobody away. If it's just to say, how can I pick up a spinach plant? Can I pick up a green plant? Can I pick up a carrot? Or how do you do this? Can I get information on this or that? Of course, we're able to get all the horticulture and agricultural information out as possible. And then if I don't know, I'll send them to Drew in the state fair. But however, this is our mission. Can't say too much on to actually explain everything. But this is our mission, and that's where I'm at with that. Yeah.
I should add something. Tyrone is understating what he does. He works with a lot of men and women coming out of prison.
Oh yeah.
Helping them get their feet on the ground. He's also developed an internship program.
Yes.
TV, and has really sparked some real heroes there. So he's a community change maker.
Oh yeah, actually I grew up in that community and I kind of can relate to a lot of the people that's there and people coming out of prison. Actually, I'm an exoneree in waiting. I've done like 26 years in prison, wrongfully convicted in Dallas, Texas. I got up under Craig Watkins years ago. Miles of Freedom is a cycle and a component that actually comes right in with what we got going. We employ and equip and empower most of the guys that come from that particular Miles of Freedom program. As they finish the cycle and the screening goes on, restorative forms, we work those guys any way we can to try to work them back in society. Restore, a lot of things that they didn't know about farming, to restore their lives. Some guys come out of the halfway house every day that's been convicted, been locked up 10 and 15 years. They're able to be social with other people that's, living good lives and things of that nature right there. They're able to be, work their way back in. And that happens every day. Every day somebody walks through the door of Miles of Freedom need help. They need money to buy pants. They need money to buy shoes. Oh, they say they'll work. Or if they work, they come do some seedlings. And they can eat at the same time all the fresh vegetables they want that we have there. The children at UT, we have those come out. They come out at least 2 or 3 times a week. different volunteers comes out, and we just don't get volunteers to volunteer. We train during a volunteer session. Well, it's like Drew, like you just don't come and just volunteer. It's gonna get some work and some training at the same time. And I love those people because when they come, they ready to work, and they work. One of the things about that is that some people come to South Dallas, they have a whole different concept about South Dallas. And the people they have to, work with, and some people they confronted with that's in the system that we do have. And the tolerance level that the people that's involved with what we do have going on, they understand the individual disposition and situation that's coming from prison, that's coming from a homeless aspect, and the literary aspect, or what have you. And they be willing to give and take their time and have tolerance to work with them. All right, now, this time I bring up Drew.
I'll be quick. That's a tough act to follow. So, good afternoon. My name is Drew Dimler. I'm the Director of Horticulture for the Great State Fair of Texas, and I'm also the head grower for the Big Tex Urban Farms. It's pretty cool coming up here, the beautiful view. You can actually see some of my work if you look that direction. We're actually right next to the Ferris wheel in the middle of Fair Park. So anyway, I'll do my best to be quick here. We started our farm at the State Fair of Texas in 2016. We were given a small budget that first year, and we had some interesting challenges to overcome to create a garden. Our first challenge being that we had nothing to work with but concrete parking lots. That's all that we have out there. Also, everything that we grow on the ornamental side and on the vegetable side outdoors has to be mobile because the park isn't static. In the area that we were given to work in, during the state fair itself is actually home to 1,000,001 food booths and a giant shopping pavilion tent. So my farm has to be able to move. So we started with 100 of these custom designed mobile planter beds. They sit on top of a pallet. And it's got basically like 2 collars high of these little, it basically makes a little raised garden in a box. The pallet allows them to be mobile. In this first year, like I say, we started with only 100 of these, so we were pretty small. And the most important thing that we did was forge a couple of really important relationships in the South Dallas community. Number one was with the Diabetes Health and Wellness Institute right down the street in Mill City. We began donating the produce that we grew that first year to their organization, and then also to Cornerstone Baptist Church, where they feed the homeless. Through that donation program, we were able to develop a really cool help develop a really cool market at the Diabetes Health and Wellness Institute, which has grown. At the year one, there was a farmer's market every Friday. The produce that we donate to that group gets given away free to the local community. It's now every Tuesday and Friday. So we've expanded on that as we've grown. The company realized pretty quickly that we were onto something with the good that we were able to do with this little program, and we got a big expansion in 2017. And at one point in time, we actually grew from 100 of those mobile planter beds to 529. We were covering 3/4 of an acre of concrete out there and cranking out veggies. It was actually, truth be known, probably a little bit bigger than we were able to handle based on the staff that I have and the other things that are, I'm still responsible for. But the mobility of these beds allowed us to do something really cool. When we realized that we kind of needed to downsize and that we didn't have storage space, we invented a program with the help of Dr. Lynch here, where we would go out into the community and actually donate some of these garden beds to other groups in the area to help them create their own community gardens and or farms. The biggest group that we donated to was Cornerstone Baptist Church, and this is in late 2017. And we actually donated 100 of them that to this day, they have a good, active, thriving community garden at their group. We've started over 15 of these now since 2017, with the plans to add a few more even this coming month. So we're trying to get other people on board growing with us. Also in 2017, you look at the slide, with that increase in budget, we realized that we had a resource that we were not utilizing properly, and that's the Errol McCoy Greenhouse on the Midway, which is located right next to the Texas Star Ferris wheel. We were using that primarily until 2017 as winter storage for tropical plants that we use to beautify the grounds, and also a model railroad garden, which was a really cute exhibit in its own right. As a person with young children, I loved seeing them see that. But we realized we could probably do more with that space. And we originally began to research the idea of doing aquaponics, where you use fish waste to fertilize the water. And we reached out to a number of different groups and organizations who had tried that locally and realized that we're not quite ready for that yet. It doesn't seem like. There's a number of failures in regards to that so far. The fish don't do well in the heat, and there's issues with that so far. So we were steered in the direction of hydroponics, where you use fertilized water, nutrient-rich water, to grow plants. And we were amazed right away with, number one, the productivity of the systems, and then secondly, the interest that the community has in that, that we're able to generate through that. So what you see right there in the slide in the middle there, the picture in the middle, is actually my second deep water culture pond. That one is 44 by 14. It's almost 7,000 gallons of water that we add fertilizer to, and then we use just a very standard plumbing procedure to keep the water oxygenated. And to give you some level of production, that system alone, that one system, on a good week will generate 396 heads of lettuce every week. So we have 2 of these systems. We've added a Dutch bucket system where we use to grow tomatoes in. We have some vertical farming racks that we're doing everything from microgreens to entire heads of lettuce to baby plant production. A nutrient film technique system where we're growing collard greens, which is great because it's such a super healthy vegetable. This system and this greenhouse has allowed us to become incredibly consistent producers of fresh, healthy vegetables that we donate to. We've expanded on who we're donating to, so we're currently up to 5 organizations that we're able to give to. In 2018, we were able to crank out over 12,000 pounds of produce. That's over 150,000 servings of USDA certified servings of food. We're on pace to eclipse that now, and we're continuing to expand on what we're doing inside using our hydroponic systems. So we've kind of changed and evolved as the years have gone on, and I think the next evolution as we move forward for us is going to be to see the best ways that we can use our platform to kind of fit in to the agri-system. Things like education. You know, I want to start training the next indoor farmers, because I think this type of stuff is going to be what can help lead us to a future, a more sustainable future. You know, the water demand is much less. You know, you don't tax the environment when you do these systems. Now, we're always going to have a need for soil. You know, these hydroponic systems aren't necessarily the ideal things for growing root crop vegetables. It's not the most efficient way to grow, you know, black-eyed peas and these kinds of things. But for the greens and so forth, they're perfect systems. And we feel like we can grow our greens and our different veggies in this and save the soil for the things that will actually require it. And especially when you're looking at needing to grow in a more consolidated area where we don't necessarily have, you know, 20,000 acre fields to play with, that this can be a big part of the future. And we at Big Tex Urban Farms want to be a part of training people to be successful with this type of system. Yes, ma'am.
How will you fund it? You say you donate a lot of your food,
We donate all of it. We donate 100% of what we grow. That's a great question. We are officially funded 100% by the State Fair of Texas. We don't take any government money, any grants, or anything. So it's strictly run by the State Fair of Texas. Anything else? I think I'm going to hand it over to Bob.
Yeah, my name is Bob Curry. I work for the city of Dallas. What I do? Oh, thank you. I hate being strapped to a microphone, but the city of Dallas, hello back there. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. The city of Dallas started an urban agricultural program about 40 days ago. And, you know, we're leading edge on a lot of things, not when it comes to agriculture. Unfortunately, but I had started interacting with restorative farms sometime late last year when I was working in the code compliance department. I worked there most of my life. I've come at a lot of this symbiotically. A lot of the issues that everybody's talked about here today, I've encountered in different ways through healthy housing, code development, and so forth. But the opportunity came to me in late December where I was talking to an assistant city manager who said, we need you here, go forth. I've been wanting to work in ag anyway, in environmental stuff. And so I said, yeah, let's do that. And right after the first of the year, I find myself sitting up there in the environmental department. So most of what I've been doing is drinking water out of a fire hose. You know, even though I've been gardening since 1945, and I understand some things about that, and I did start several community gardens here, I knew that wasn't the solution. Owen said that, and I believe it's true. You know, we produce how many heads of lettuce and so forth, and I just saw the other day, I went to a food bank, the one over in Tarrant County, a little smaller than the one in Dallas. They do 15 million pounds of food through that one facility every year. And if you probably can't imagine, it would take several stories of this building and its footprint to equal that amount of food. So we've got a scale problem we've got to address. So what does the city do? Number one, my job is to understand what the city is doing. In many cases, get them out of the way, because the city, and all cities, frankly, many cities just get in the way more than they help. And I know the people inside the city, and I can work with them. So I'll be doing a lot of that here in the next few months. I'm a data geek also. So I go to the DCAD, and I harvest all the properties in DCAD that have agricultural zoning. There's 5,500 of them. I never knew that. Now, why there's a lot in the middle of a residential subdivision that has ag zoning, I don't know yet, but I know why. I know that. I understand that. Yeah, but there's like 10 different types of zoning, and I've talked to people over there, give me definitions and so forth. The point is, and somebody said, we have a lot of land we do. And one of my jobs is figuring out how to do something with it. I've got 850 city-owned vacant lots to figure whether to put housing on it, a park, you know, whatever the choices are, put a farm on it. So I'm really at the beginning of all of that, and I have more questions than answers. I do know that from doing my work in code, that a community garden can build community. So I'm going to do that. I mean, sure, why not? But the opportunity is, and we've heard it said here, is great. We have urban farms. We really are scratching the surface. We've got 136 identified community gardens of some sort, backyard gardens to the kind of thing we're talking about here. I don't know where they are. I can see them on a map, but I haven't been to them. rooftop gardens. We were looking out here thinking, gosh, you know, we've got buildings that could have gardens on top. If any of you have been to Chicago, their city hall has a garden on the top. That's kind of exciting to me. Indoor vertical farms, as Drew was talking about with his vertical or hydroponic, we got to get there. It's going to take a lot of dollars and a lot of commitment. We have, in my neighborhood, a vacant grocery store. That can be a hydroponic farm. The other day I was over here, and many of you know where the Pearlstone silos are, right? I want to see if we can develop that in a vertical farm. I happen to know the guy that owns it, so I'm going to ask him. But gosh, you can't saw holes in that place because it's a historic landmark. But maybe we can do something with it. I don't know. Certainly hydroponic, aquaponics, we've got to keep doing. And a lot of what I'm able to do working for the city, there are certain people that come to the city first, right or wrong, because we're the city. So I've got 2 advertising companies now that have come to us, and they want to, one of them wants to make community gardens their project for the year. They're going to organize goods, things that they can bring to us, and we can distribute. Terrific, love to have them. They're also going to be doing a lot of outreach for us that we frankly couldn't pay for. You know, and if they can get out there and talk about, and one of the companies is targeted on millennials. I don't see a lot of millennials here. I'm certainly not one of them. And I'm having to learn how to use Instagram now and YouTube, which is a whole another channel I didn't even know existed, except to figure out how to, you know, fix your dryer or something. So that's a lot of kind of what I think I can help do. And the final thing, if I can, oh, I got to push this thing, is simply partnerships. We have, it's a collaborative universe out here, and I think we can do a lot to work with like people in this room and people we don't even know to get together so that we can help build the city. My goal in my fantasy world is to have us be the #1 green city in the country. We got nothing but opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys, each one of you, Brad, Owen, Tyrone, Drew, and Bob. We appreciate your presentation so much. And while we've run a little long, it's my fault because I started us late. Will you guys be available for a few minutes afterwards if people would like to ask you questions? Excellent. So you guys who have some great questions, please come forward and talk to our speakers. And we have something for each of you. So we have been around since 1911. So we celebrated our centennial a few years ago. And at that celebration, we put together these great history books of 100 years in service with the Rotary Club of Dallas. And each one of these has been signed for you guys by those who are in attendance for your presentation today. So you'll see they've all been personalized for each one of you. And it means a lot to us that you presented to us today, these great things that y'all are doing, so we hope you enjoy these books. And I'll hand them to you here in just a minute. Thank you. Can we hear it once again for our speakers? Thank you, guys. All right. Okay, well, we'll just let our slideshow catch up. Next week, we have Jennifer Bartkowski with the STEM Center of Excellence, the Girl Scouts of North Texas. She'll be talking to us about the STEM facility, which is also located in South Dallas and doing some phenomenal things. Also next week, Safer Dallas will be hosting their Safer Dallas committee meeting just down the hall, right here, just down the hall over there at 11:15. So anyone who's interested in supporting our Dallas police, please join us. Last but not least, wanted to make sure you all knew that all of our announcements have been truncated into a pre-meeting slideshow. So those will be scrolling every week. So while we're not doing so many announcements from the podium, you'll see some things going on. And you can also check our website because it's updated now with all of our announcements and things and calendar events. So if you have any questions, of course, ask Hillary, but otherwise, just stay tuned at the screen before the meetings. Finally, Rotarians, please stand with me and let's recite of the things that we wish all others would think, say, and do. First, second, Third. Fourth. And specifically for the Rotary Club of Dallas, number 5. Yes, it is. Thank you all very much. What a great presentation. We are adjourned.